When's the last time you read the terms and conditions of a digital service? How about acknowledging an app's privacy policy? For most of you, scrolling down as fast as you can to the checkbox at the end of a form is something you do without thinking. And it certainly was for me, until I learned what it actually meant for my data. We're treating the terms and conditions simply as an obligatory checkbox at the end of a form we've hardly read, as opposed to treating it like the legally binding contract it truly is. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'd like to talk about data privacy. It's an internet buzzword that's been thrown around with the likes of AI, machine learning, and big data. But by definition, data privacy, or information privacy, is a branch of security concerned with the proper handling of data, consent, notice, and regulatory obligations. In an entirely digitized 21st century, you'd even be right to equate the value of data to liquid gold. Now, debates around privacy usually seem simple at first. Something is either private or it's not. But it's not until we unpack the fine print that we realize why it's so important. Before we even delve into my personal experiences with privacy, we need to first understand the principle that content on the World Wide Web is hardly unintentional. There's a hidden goal driving the direction of all the technology we make, and that goal is the race for our attention. Because every news site, TED Talk, elections, politicians, games, even meditation apps have to compete for one thing, which is our attention. And there's only so much of it. And the best way to get people's attention is to know how someone's mind works. In other words, discussions about privacy are more central to our daily lives than we can possibly imagine. 6 months ago, I participated in the Global Summit on Data Security. As a student, it was fairly intimidating listening to large corporations and thought leaders devoting their lives as well as resources aimed at producing solutions to privacy concerns. The summit, without a doubt, was memorable. I was exposed to a plethora of think tanks forcing me to reflect upon countless security breaches occurring on a day-to-day basis that I had hardly ever given a single thought to. But what I learned from the summit goes far beyond saving passwords and the do's and don'ts of social media. Something that really resonated with me to this day is an abbreviation known as the 3 P's of privacy: people, purpose, and process. The first of the P's is people. As a thought experiment, I was tasked with utilizing common conceptions about privacy to convince a group of selected individuals towards purchasing a set product. You'll be surprised to see how easy this was. To prove just how few people bother to read the terms and conditions when they purchase an item or engage a service, we succeeded in persuading 99% of survey respondents and customers at the summit to surrender ridiculous things, like the naming rights of their firstborn child and browsing history access to their mothers. As a matter of fact, those who had provided seemingly innocuous information, such as their zip code or travel preferences, were 10 times more likely to buy a predetermined product. Let that sink in for a second. 99 of every 100 participants are willingly surrendering their personal intellectual property to profit-driven companies, potentially subjecting themselves to sneakily targeted advertisements. For what it's worth, corporations could even advertise bottled air within a privacy policy agreement, and I'd expect the majority of you to go along with it without even noticing. Next, purpose. To identify how exactly corporations make money off of our data, it's worth breaking down what a privacy policy looks like in the first place. We've all wondered what those endless pages of clauses and exceptions actually mean for you as a user. And at the summit, we formulated a general template based on over 150 policies accused of security breaches. Almost every one of these statements starts off generic, citing company values and the usual privacy is at the forefront of our business statement. It's the first thing you see, and so needs to be able to make you trust the company enough to skim read the rest of the agreement. Unsurprisingly, the data we collected showed that 98% of users effectively check the I agree box based off the first 3 lines of the agreement. Following the value statement comes the ask, a section strategically concealed and devised ultimately to list your rights and data taken, but unfortunately isn't really intended for you to read. Statements you would most definitely object to, like the sharing of your credit card data across company branches, and the usage of your location for predictive adverts are stored here. Take a look at this statement from Amazon's privacy policy. Notice anything yet? By ticking that agree box, Amazon's users have literally placed their banking information in the hands of 150 of Amazon's subsidiary companies. Simply by ordering that set of headphones online, over 350,000 employees have just received access to your data. With lengthy technical jargon and promise statements, you're confused into thinking these are there to inform users as opposed to protecting companies instead. If there's anything you take away from this speech, it's to look through the second half of the privacy agreement for every digital service you use. Chances are there's a box you'd rather uncheck that's getting overlooked. And if you do end up checking that box, I'd make sure you're happy with a minimum of 10,000 complete strangers looking through that information. Finally, the last of the P's is process. Many of the companies cited updated regulations and newly processed policies as a means of producing solutions to privacy concerns. This got me thinking, what is this actually going to change? How many of us are going to scroll through the new policies and alter our data settings? We sign up to get the service, but we don't put much thought into who might be storing our clicks. It does seem weird at first when the device seems to know where we live, how old we are, what brand of toothpaste we use, or what books we like. Then we grow to expect this familiarity, and even to like it. It makes the online world seem customized for us, and it cuts down on the time we need to map the route home or order something new to read. The machine essentially anticipates what we want. This, ladies and gentlemen, forms the foundation of predictive analytics. Now, some of you here might be wondering, if I've got nothing to hide, why should I care? And if you are, I wouldn't be surprised. In fact, we dedicated an entire day of the summit towards evaluating what's known as the nothing to hide argument. Essentially, in a tight nutshell, the theory states that an individual has no reason to fear or oppose surveillance programs unless they are afraid it will uncover their own illegal activities. But it's equally important to take a step back and understand the wider implications of this. Over the next decade, the next 3 billion people will come online, mostly from developing countries. Personal privacy will be vital to ensuring their survival, both offline and online. Even if we do opt out, as corporations suggest, does this really mean they stop collecting our data? Would they reveal collected data to us? And if we ask to have this data deleted, would they actually do so? In my eyes, arguing that you don't care about the right to privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different than saying you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say. And the internet, it's the very epitome of free speech. As such, we need to make privacy ubiquitous, simple, and understood by all. Only then will we be able to preserve one of the greatest innovations of the last century, the internet, and allow for our world to continue to develop, innovate, and prosper. Browsing the internet under the privacy of our homes has given us the impression that our activities are also private, but often we're more visible than ever. In short, ladies and gentlemen, the next time you download an application and the terms and conditions pop up, be someone who is responsible with their data and will refuse to walk willingly into a trap a company has so craftily laid out. Because data is now an invaluable economic resource. And if we want to allow for the internet to drive the benefits of every aspect of life it permeates through today, we need to stand up to the challenge of protecting our data. In turn, rebooting our digital conscience. Thank you.